What is up, everybody? It's your boy Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, and today we are going to be talking about a movie that just hit streaming, but we're going to dive into more of the true story behind it. We'll get into the movie a little, but this is more like a true story, what they left out kind of thing. It's a wrestling movie. It came out in December. Don't know why it took so long to hit streaming, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Iron Claw. You wrestling fans know what that movie is. You know what the story is of the Von Erichs, and it's not a happy one. Let's just say that. So be prepared for a lot of sad news, folks, if you don't know who the Von Erichs are. But with that being said, let's dive right in.
The Von Erichs will forever be the greatest family in the history of wrestling.
Let me introduce you to the Von Erichs. First is famous father Fritz Von Erich, who rose to fame by being a very good bad guy in wrestling. Fritz had a first son called Jack Jr. Obviously, his real name is Jack. Jack Jr. passed away at the age of 6 due to electrocution. Yes, folks, it's not going to be a fun video. It's a lot of dark stuff, so just be warned. Fritz then went on to have 5 more sons: Carrie, Kevin, Chris, David, and Mike. We will all get into them in a little bit, but let's start it off with this. Kevin, David, and Carrie rose to fame in wrestling. They were the big stars of the group. David was considered the best technical wrestler of the sons. So he was on his way to become a star. He even had a match lined up for the NWA World title against Ric Flair. Now, we all know who Ric Flair is, one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. So could you imagine if David got to face Ric Flair? Unfortunately, that never came to be because David passed away at the age of 25 in 1984 due to a ruptured intestine. They go into that in the movie. He's vomiting in the movie. He's vomiting blood. But he's like, nah, I'm fine. I'll go through it. He wanted to impress his dad, and obviously that led to his death. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there, folks. 3 years later, in 1987, Mike Von Erich, who was probably the worst wrestler of the group, he passed away. He had shoulder surgery, which led to toxic shock syndrome, which caused him to lose weight, brain damage, and he ended up overdosing. So that's 2 more sons that passed away. Now we go on to Chris Von Erich, the man that the movie forgot. We'll get into why the movie left him out. Chris Von Erich wasn't the most gifted athletically. He ended up, towards the end of his life, teaming with Kevin to hide, like, his in-ring skill. I mean, that happens to guys, unfortunately, in wrestling, but he was just one of those guys. Unfortunately, in 1991, Chris ended up dying due to a gunshot wound to the head. That's 3 sons, 4 in total, 3 wrestling sons that passed away. Now on to what probably would have been the most successful brother, Kerry Von Erich. Kerry ended up taking David's spot against Ric Flair for the NWA title, and he won. He won the belt. He finally brought home the belt for the family. Do you think it's going to get happy from here? No. 2 years later, Kerry got into a motorcycle accident and lost his right foot. True story. He tried to hide it, but obviously it wasn't going to work. He ended up getting addicted to painkillers after that, and he took his life because of a gunshot wound. Yes. Another brother passing away. That's 5 in total, and 4 of the 5 wrestling brothers. So within 8 years, 4 of the 5 wrestling brothers passed away. Yes. The movie's heartbreaking, and the story is absolutely heartbreaking. I ain't gonna lie to you. So Fritz and his wife got divorced in 1992. Onto the remaining lone survivor of the group. Kevin Von Erich confirmed in his Dark Side of the Ring episode that Fritz ended up pulling a gun on him, saying, "Are you going to die on me like the others did?" Fritz had brain cancer. He didn't really know what he was doing. Fritz wasn't a great guy to begin with. Fritz ended up dying in 1997 due to his battle with cancer. Kevin, the surviving one, talked about his struggles, mental health, and he did indeed think about taking his life. But happily, he is still here today. He got to wrestle with his sons in his retirement match, which was awesome. On to a bit of the movie. Iron Claw, it hit theaters in December of 2023. Kevin Von Erich, played by Zac Efron. Carrie Von Erich, played by Jeremy Allen White. David Von Erich, played by Harris Dickinson. Mike Von Erich, played by Stanley Simons. Doris Von Erich, played by Maura Tierney. You've seen her before. And Fritz Von Erich, played by Holt McCallany. Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White absolutely killed it. I thought they should have won awards for their performance, but unfortunately the committee did not see it like I did in that fact. And Dickinson and Simons, for their very limited role, they were very good. Maura Tierney did very well in the movie. In the movie, you could tell in real life she wasn't allowed to cry. The husband wouldn't let her, but after each son's passing, you could tell she just slowly started to break down, as any mother would. That's a terrible situation she was put into. And Fritz Von Erich, Holt McCallany, he is one of those bad guys that you just want to punch in the face while you are watching the movie. But acting-wise, he played it so well. Everybody hated that man in this movie, and rightfully so. He did a great job playing the role, and in real life, Fritz Von Erich, not really that good of a guy. So I told you we would dive into Chris Von Erich a little bit, movie-wise. Chris Von Erich was not mentioned in the movie at all. You would think it was only them. Chris was left out due to it already being sad enough, which I understand, and timing issues. So I guess they wanted to spare you one of the brothers' deaths, which is fair, but I also think if you're going to make a movie about their story, you should really make it accurate. I don't know. It was still a great movie regardless. Now on to a little trivia of the movie. Chris, the story behind that was one of them. The director asked Zac Efron to refrain from crying throughout the movie. So I guess even when filming the scenes, it got a little emotional. He said, hey man, hold on. Hang on to the final scene, then you could let loose and cry. Zac Efron did it successfully. And as you can see in the final scene of the movie, Zac Efron, Kevin Von Erich, ends up crying his eyes out so he could finally mourn his brothers. It's an interesting tidbit there, but I do like it. It makes the scene feel that much more emotional. And lastly, a few pro wrestlers made it into this movie. Ryan Nemeth played a wrestler in this movie, and you could see it in the face if you look hard enough. Chavo Guerrero was in the very beginning of the movie. He was also the wrestling coordinator in this movie, which is a good wrestling coordinator to have because he was very good in ring. And in a blink and you'll miss it moment, MJF played one of their cousins in the movie. You could see him, but you gotta look really hard to find him. And MJF was also an executive producer on this movie, so good on you, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Doing your cons, doing your wrestling, doing your producing. Good on you, buddy. But yes, Iron Claw. Top 2 movie of 2023 for me. Go see it if you haven't, but if you cry easily, make sure you have tissues right there because it's going to get you, I promise. And that is my dive into the movie and the true story of the Von Erichs and Iron Claw. What did you think of the movie and what do you think of the story? Comment below and let me know. Because I knew about this story going in. Obviously, I watched The Dark Side of the Ring. It's sad, but the movie was very good. Kevin is living his happy life in Hawaii with his whole family on a ranch, which is pretty awesome to say. And it's awesome to see. So a somewhat happy ending, but still overall just the dark stories and the curses of the Von Erich. But Kevin broke the curse, so I am glad to see it. And yes, that is my review of the Von Erich story and Iron Claw. Next up is a review of the movie that is probably due to hit streaming soon. I am not sure on that. Civil War. It came out mid-April and we'll get into that in that video. Yeah, that's all I can say. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. Plenty of content coming, folks. I enjoyed doing this. It's another wrestling video. A sad one, for sure. But with that being said, I am Bobby from Bobby's Breakdowns, and we will see you in the next one. Later.